Yo, what's up, everybody? I want to talk about some rumors and speculation that's been floating around just because I think it's kind of fun to do, right? It's kind of interesting and kind of fun. Is it accurate? Is it gonna be facts? No, no, no. But is it gonna be fun and interesting? Hell yeah. So, two things I want to talk about. First of all, Sylph, and the second thing is speculation about the next Dota patch. Now, an important thing to keep in mind here. This is all not really based in anything other than leaks and assumption, and there's nothing confirmed here, right? Nothing confirmed here. Although we do have some things that are like pretty close to confirmed, okay? Like really important to keep in mind. Now, people have pointed towards this hero regarding Sylph, right? I think we have a lot of information on the Pangolin dude because the trailer really shows us a lot. I did an analysis on that already. If you want to know my opinion on the Pangolin dude, but I think his abilities are going to be, you can watch that. But we have hardly anything on Sylph. One of the main things we have on Sylph is this. Now you may say, what the fuck is this? This right here is a Dota patch. It's on GitHub. It's just a Steam database, game tracking, Dota 2, GitHub. But on this patch, in this patch, they had included some things about hero Sylph on July 7th. So it wasn't that long ago, right? And in fact, Dr. Jester released this little, released his findings of this, I guess, about 2 weeks ago, right? Like, so it's been in the game for a little bit, but we only found it about 2 weeks ago, where Dr. Jester actually went through the files and found something weird. Now, what is this weird thing? Game sounds heroes, game sounds Sylph. Hero Sylph pre-attack. Hero Sylph attack. Hero Sylph projectile impact. Hero Sylph grapple. Hero Sylph grapple loop. Hero Sylph Shadow Realm. Hero Sylph Shadow Realm impact. Hero Sylph flash powder. Hero Sylph Will-O-Wisp, Hero Sylph Will-O-Wisp hit, and then Hero Sylph idle loop and Hero Sylph death. Alright, that all sounds reasonable, right? It all sounds good. It sounds like, okay, clearly there's something here. Now this is information, this is valuable information. Now we know grapple has a noise, which makes it probably not a passive, right? But no guarantee there. Some passives do have sounds as well, right? So that doesn't really tell us anything for sure. But Hero Sylph grapple has a loop. So it's probably something that goes on, right? Like, for example, Shadow Shaman's Shackles, right? Like, I imagine this is going to be an ability similar to that. Maybe it doesn't channel, maybe just like kind of like happens for a period of time. But it's definitely something that happens for an extended period of time. We know that. Shadow Realm. And Shadow Realm just has an impact. Okay. What does that tell us? Right? What does that tell us? Well, it tells us that you have a cast noise and then you have a noise when it hits, which means it's probably just like a single target skill shot kind of ability, right? Could be one of those. Could also mean, of course, that it's just something that, now, impact doesn't necessarily mean, like it is a projectile. It can also mean just when it happens. We have flash powder, which just has flash powder. So what we know about flash powder is very likely to either be a passive or just like a one button push, boom, something happens kind of thing, right? Because again, a passive would only need one noise, like Phantom Assassin's ultimate with the no, actually Phantom Assassin's ultimate, right? Like even without the Arcana, it still has a noise. And then we know Will-O-Wisp and Will-O-Wisp hit. Huh. Now that's interesting. Hit, not impact, but hit. Okay, cool. It also, and this is interesting as well, it has an attack here, right? So you can see Fire Spirit's cast. Okay, makes sense, right? We have here Tempest double flash powder. Okay, well that just means it's a single ability, right? Doesn't really tell us about that. And then we have Gale Impact 2, Gale Impact 3. This is just variation, but impact variation, right? Darkness, Nightmare. And then, of course, Puck Impact, and then Puck Attack. Now, this is the really important thing, right? Puck Attack, and these are just being used as placeholders right now. Puck Attack, they are using Chen Attack for Will-O-Wisp hit. They are not using a spell like they did for all of the other ones. Instead, they're using Attack when it hits. They do use a spell when it's cast, but they don't use a spell when it's hit. They use an attack. Now that is interesting, right? It tells us something about it. Now, let's go ahead and go into Edgewalker. Now, this is a hero that I've seen quite a few people point towards as like, it could potentially be him. This right here is a list of heroes that were kind of promised for Dota 6.77b in the original, All-Stars. This is mostly nonsense, right? Like, this is just, these heroes were apparently leaked, right? There's digging through data dumps, official 6.77b, and these are heroes that were part of this data dump. Now, that doesn't mean they ever would have made it into the actual game. It just means they're things that were work in progress. Now, that can really mean anything, right? Like, work in progress can mean Ice Frog was on the toilet, noted down 3 abilities, and then just tried them out, and then decided this is shit, and dumped it. Right, like, that's what it can mean. It can also mean they spent quite a lot of time working on it, and then decided, this doesn't really work. Alright, this is just not, this is not how I want it. And then, then they dump it. So, the first one, of course, is not something we'll go back to, but the second one definitely could go. It could be something that we end up going back to. Now, this is the one that people talk about. Edgewalker. Now, what does Edgewalker do? Well, it has Death Touch, targets another unit and places a buff on them for 10 seconds. If the unit is killed by an enemy, the unit responsible for the killing blow takes damage and is stunned. This ability, I think, is other garbage. We'll never see in regular Dota just because it's terrible design. Right, we will not see this. It's bad. Not in terms of how good it is in terms of balance, but in terms of design, it is counterintuitive. It is something that punishes you for doing anything, really, right? It is, to a certain extent, either really terrible or a worse Shadow Grave, right? Like, oh, my teammate is dying, put him on him. Oh, shit, he still died, but at least I got a little bit of damage. Like, you see, this is just never going to make it. Reality Shift places a ward which causes nearby enemy units to become ethereal. Fatal Attraction. Whenever Edgewalker casts a skill, all enemy units in an AoE of X are pulled Y distance towards him. And then Haunting Echoes. This skill seems to passively spawn a wisp next to Edgewalker at intervals of X seconds. He can have up to a maximum of 3 wisps around him at a given time. Casting this skill destroys one of the wisps and silences and deals damage in a small AoE. The cooldown of this skill is very short, but it's limited by the wisp spawns. Now, it's mostly because of the wisp spawns that, people are like, oh, Edgewalker, right? But, like, the thing is, there's actually a little bit of something there. Reality Shift places a ward which causes nearby enemy units to become ethereal. It's actually kind of an interesting ability. Would that fit? Do we have something here that makes sense with that? Well, Shadow Realm makes sense in terms of both the sounds, right? Like, Shadow Realm, you cast it, you put it down somewhere, and Impact, they walk into it. But then it's missing a loop, but I guess you could just, I don't know, does it need a loop? No, they're ethereal now. Right, like ethereal has its own noise, so we don't need a loop there. It could also be the grapple, actually. It doesn't need to be Shadow Realm, right? Grapple kind of makes sense. You put it down and then they walk into it, they get grappled by the ward. Right, you've got Nightmare loop. Kind of could work. I find it an interesting ability. We don't really have too much if it comes to etherealness. It's just kind of like, it's something that fits with the name Shadow Realm, in my opinion, right? Like, it's just like, makes a little bit of sense that a Shadow Realm banishes people away like that. Yeah, I can get behind that. That seems kind of reasonable. Then we have Fatal Attraction. Whenever Edgewalker casts a skill, all enemy units in an AoE of X are pulled by distance towards him. So, Flash Powder, of course, the name doesn't make any sense in that context at all. So, like, in terms of what kind of sound they assign to it, as it is a passive, it would work. Right, every time you cast a spell, you have that noise triggering, pulling people towards you. I just don't think that we'll see Play-Doh at all. Like, oh, what I mean with the will see play will be in the game. Like, no chance in hell. I don't think that's going to happen. Now, this is something I think is really important here. Just because a hero is on this list and was made before doesn't mean they'll actually end up in the game like this, and doesn't mean they'll actually end up reusing their abilities. In fact, if we look at Monkey King in Dota 2 right now, and then we look at the leaked Monkey King that they were working on in Warcraft 3 Dota, in Dota All-Stars, dude, they're nothing alike. The ultimate is a little bit similar, but not really. Right? Like, you can see some resemblance of the hero, but none of the abilities actually overlap. None of them do. Right? So, just because, they worked on something doesn't mean they'll actually do it in Dota 2. Now, the ability that I think is the most likely to actually end up in the game in a similar fashion is Haunting Echoes. Now, I've already said that I like the idea of Sylph being a hero that summons this Will-O-Wisp to fight for her, right? Like, the Will-O-Wisp is not so much a unit you control. The Will-O-Wisp just kind of floats around her and does its own thing. Now, this actually makes sense here, right? You summon the Will-O-Wisp with your Sylph. Well, Fire Spirit's cast, okay. And then the Will-O-Wisp attacks things. Like, it just attacks things on its own. It just flows around you and just punches people. Not only does it punch people, but I'm sure it synergizes with your abilities as well, right? Like, maybe it casts Flash Powder and Shadow Realm and all of that. Maybe it can do those things as well as attack things. It does make sense. Again, like, this is the big thing right here. This is the big hint. Attack, 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 attack. Now, that kind of makes sense with this ability here a little bit. The Haunting Echoes, right? Like, summons 3 wisps, but it doesn't work with silencing and dealing damage in an AoE, especially since it's missing the second cast activation sound and all of that. So yeah, I don't really believe in this Edgewalker theory, as you can tell. I think this is nonsense. I think we can find a lot of information in here, but even there, it's just not really enough to actually make some very accurate guesses on what the abilities are going to be. So that's really all I wanted to talk about in regards to Sylph. And now let's go and talk about something else. Host leaks info about the next patch. Yep. Oh, that is interesting, isn't it? So, I don't speak Russian. There's, you know, like a little Twitch clip here that we can look at. But that doesn't tell me anything. Don't speak Russian, right? Like, so, whatever. Somebody translated it, though. And there's a second thread made up with a similar thing, right? And there's a 4chan leak! Our favorite kind of leak! Oh, man. Who doesn't love 4chan leaks? So, Wolf Insider here, giving insight on post-TI patch. Talents are now given from level 9 to 25, each 4 levels. Aghanim Scepter is completely reworked and now says grants the hero a new spell. All previous spells granted before are left untouched. All other upgrades are shifted into high-level talents with few number tweaks. Many reworked abilities are now granted by Scepter. All Blood Rage, Silence, and plus 90% damage for 6 seconds, castable on any unit. All Juxtapose. Now Phantom Fade, grants invisibility and leaves an illusion. Level Death, Mini-Stun, and 150 plus 20% magical damage on target based on level. We're working on 5 new spells to add for the new update. There's also a new event that involves Rubic Arcana and tiny bits of lore on his father. Now, you may notice there's some things that are already a little bit fishy about this, apart from the fact that it is a 4chan post. There's also a new event that involves Rubic Arcana and tiny bits of lore on his father. Well, that sounds like nonsense, right? Like, because Patch Arcana is actually the thing that ended up winning. Except, not really, because it was so close. And they gave us Io and Juggernaut Arcana last time, right? Why wouldn't they give us Patch and Rubic Arcana again? The thing is, that isn't actually something that disproves this post. People have pointed towards that being something that disproves it, but it really doesn't, because we have precedent on this, and very recent precedent, right? Incredibly recent precedent. On top of that, Rubik's lore is actually one of the more interesting lores in the entire game. There's also something you gotta keep in mind here, because Rubik's father is Aghanim's, I believe. Rubik's father is Aghanim's, which is just like, okay, well, it would make sense that they would release lore on Aghanims when they are making such a big change to the Aghanim Scepter. And this is the thing. If this was just like a fake made-up post, I don't think somebody would have thought that much into it. Right? Like, I just don't think that this hidden connection that seems to me like something that only somebody that actually works on this shit and thinks about it so much that he doesn't consider this something worth explaining. This is a mistake only that person would make, right? Because there's, again, additional information he could have put in there to, like, make his post more believable, but he didn't. He just assumed people knew, okay? So either this is, like, the next level of fake leak, or there's actually some legitimacy to it. Now, this is where we go back to Havost, because Havost says, alright, good, and in the next patch, I want to say something, but I forgot what. Actually, I didn't forget anything, and I know what I wanted to say. In the next patch, Turns to the other two. Is this info already public, or was it not revealed yet? One of them, say it! Maybe everyone already knows it! I don't know why it's got a weird noise. Important part, Hubust. There will be 5 variants of talents from the 9th level, and I'm not joking right now. And as, well, you're already fired now, because no one knew about that. Laughing and unimportant stuff. That was a rough translation of the dialogue. The part about the talent is quite confusing to me. Reddit, start theorizing. Same thing over here, right? Yesterday, at the end of the stream, after the new patch presentation, it was said there will be 5 talents rows instead of 4, and the first talent row will be at level 9. Okay, so this is clearly confirmed, right? So Hubust actually said this. Not only that, but Hubust is a well-respected figure in the community. He has been a top player for a long time, or was a top player for a long time, and he would be the kind of person that actually has insight on this shit. Right? Like, if you told me Hubust gets the patch before everybody else, I'm like, yeah, of course. I'm not surprised. That makes sense to me. So, Hubust kind of confirmed something there, because talents are now given from level 9 to 25 each 4 levels. We have 2 separate sources, one of them being very believable, right? Hubust being very somebody we can say, oh yeah, no, that actually seems like something that would be true, right? And a completely independent, useless piece of shit 4chan source. But all of a sudden, with that, and then the thing about, you know, bits of lore and his father, that kind of makes me think there's actually maybe some truth to this. Now, there's also some cool game design truth to it. Because this now reduces the amount of levels where there is nothing to skill by 1. Dota currently has a bunch of empty levels. Now, Dota always had empty levels, but empty levels, in my opinion, are fucking stupid, right? Like, it's just weird. Because currently in Dota, you can't skill anything at level 17, and you can't skill anything at level 19, and you can't skill anything at level 21, 22, 23, and 24. With this, you can now skill something every single level, all the way up to 18, I believe. Right? You get one at level 9, then you get one at level 15. No, at 13 and one at level 17. Right? So you're filling that level 17 gap, which now means that you can skill something at level 18, which is your ultimate, but no, that would be it, right? So all the way to level 18, there's always something to skill, which is kind of cool, right? I can get behind that. And then you have something level 21, and then you have something at level 25. Okay, makes sense to me, right? And personally, I always thought it was a little bit silly that there's like this big gap between, you know, like 18 to 20, okay, yeah, that's not that big. And then it's like 20 to 25, which is like super fucking huge and takes forever, right? This way it like evens out a little bit. Also, more talents is cool. Aghanim Scepter is now completely reworked and says grants the hero a new spell. That's something we've been moving towards anyway, right? All previous spells granted before are left untouched. All of our upgrades are shifted into high-level talents with a few number tweaks. That makes sense to me, right? That seems reasonable. Now, not all of them. There's clearly going to be some exceptions. But that actually, no, that, you know what, that does make sense to me. That does make sense to me. Now, I don't think that, okay, like this is the thing though, like, grants the hero a new spell, as much as that, like, I want to believe that's true, like, with some heroes it just doesn't work. Like, what about Meeple? Right, what about Meeple? Is he just going to have another talent that, like, is he going to have a talent that gives him an additional Meeple? That's not a talent. That means he will always have, you know, always pick that talent. Like, that's just what's going to happen because he's Meeple. Right? There's no way around that. But at the same time, Dota's a game of exceptions. There's so many exceptions all over the place. All over the place. I wouldn't be too surprised if it ends up being the case that Meeple is the exception. And Meeple is just like somebody like, oh, whatever, you get to keep the old Aghanims. However, this is the other problem. A lot of old abilities weren't actually that great. Alright, that's the thing. Many reworked abilities are now granted by Scepter. Alright, like Blood Rage, you add silence and plus 90% damage for 6 seconds castable in any unit. On Bloodseeker, right now? Ooh. I'm not sure that's like a great idea, man. Because with his current Blood Rage, and then you put the new Blood Rage on him as well, you run around dagging people. Right? You'll have like 130 damage up. that's gonna one-shot everything. Everything. It's actually insane, right? So that doesn't really make sense to me. Like, this is the thing that makes me skeptical of this. Like, old juxtaposition of Phantom Fang, grants invisibility and leaves on illusion. This is terrible. This doesn't work for Phantom Lancer. Phantom Lancer doesn't need that, right? Like, his current Aghanim's is better than that. It doesn't make sense from, like, this is the one thing that makes me skeptical about this entire situation, where just these abilities, these examples listed, it's just terrible. Why would you want to have these abilities back at the cost of 4,200 gold? First of all, it is so risky with some of them that they are just going to completely break the game, because, you know, the reworked ability is kind of very similar to the old ability, and then you suddenly have both. Like, that's nonsense. And, you know, and then you just, I don't know. Right, like, that's where it falls a little bit flat, and that's where I'm a little bit confused. Now, what I think is absolutely confirmed is talents are given from level 9 to 25, each 4 levels. Sick, man. That sounds to me like it's true. What also sounds to me like it's true is there's also a new event that involves Rubik Arcana. Alright, so to me that sounds true that there's actually going to be a Rubik Arcana. They're already planning for that. They never cared about who wins the Arcana vote. It's just who gets the Arcana first. Like, that's all. Or maybe they all get at the same, maybe they just never cared, right? They'll just give them to both. Alright, like, that sounds perfectly reasonable to me. I want to believe this because I think this is a cool idea, but these examples just make me very skeptical and not very into it. Alright, like, I just, can't dig it. Anyway. Rumors and speculations, my friend. Isn't that fun? I hope you guys enjoyed the video. That's really all I wanted to talk about today. I don't know. I thought you guys might find this fun. Maybe you don't. But either way, let me know what you think about this kind of video. By this kind of video, I mean not the like stuff I talked about, but like just talking about stuff. Right? You like this shit? If so, it's nice to do. I enjoy it. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a good night.